So we just finished up this build on the 79 series. It's got a Tommy camper on the back, and we did a bit of a fit out behind the seat, and then a pretty big fit out in the actual Tommy camper. So let's just jump into it and run through everything we've done. So starting at the front, so already had the bull bar fitted. He already fitted these lights, but we just actually wired it up. And then the winch itself was already fitted as well and wired. We just did the actual isolation side of it. But yeah, the rest of that stuff had already come pre-fitted, I believe from Tommy campers themselves. So then jumping onto the engine bay, so we've just swapped out the start battery for a Century Overlander. This is a far superior battery than the factory one, especially if you're going to be doing a lot of corrugations and that. They handle the vibrations a lot better. And then we just put our get home safe kit in it, so that's just the second underbonnet battery. Really, we just set them up and nothing gets powered off it. It's just a get home safe, so then that way, if you ever have any dramas with the actual start battery, you just hit a switch in the dash and they'll link them together and then you'll be good to go. So that's just where the solenoid is there. Then just the switch fuse is just labeled there as well. Then he had a couple of these brackets that he supplied. And then we just gone ahead and wired everything up, so everything's just labelled there so you can see exactly what everything is. If you ever have any dramas with it, you can see straight away where my fuse is to get that fixed. Then we put our upgraded alternator in it with our wiring kit, but we just made a slight modification just on the fusing. So usually it's just a single mega, but we're just going for the twin mega on this one. And that's just really because we've got so much DC-DC charging and we wanted to pull that straight off the alternator just to get rid of all those losses that you would get if you pulled it from the battery and then onto the fuse. So we've gone straight off the alternator. So that's why we've just got an extra fuse there, and that's just for our DC-DCs because we've got 3 of them currently fitted, 1 for behind the seat and then 2 in the actual Tommy campers. So that's why there's 2 there, 1 for the upgraded alternator and then 1 for your DC-DC charging. Then located on the other side of the engine bay, we've got the diesel filter as well, so that's just a secondary diesel filter. So then that way, if you're ever picking up any dirty fuel, you've got that second filter there just to try and filter some of that stuff out. And then located over there as well is just all our relays. So we just added a heap of relays in. He's got thermo fans and then all the relays we need to run the rest of the vehicle, like your spotlights and so on. They're all just housed over there. So we just tucked them all over in the quarter panel there and it just keeps them out the way. Makes it super simple. If you ever got to get to them, you can just pull the relay and just makes it easy for you to be able to do any troubleshooting. Also located over there is just all your diff breathers and then trans breather and that. So it's just a nice accessible place. Just makes it easy to get to and gets them up nice and high out the way. And then we're pre-wired for the thermo fans in the future. So he's got a couple of joist plugs over there, so everything's pre-wired. So that way if you ever want to chuck those on in the future, everything's there ready to go. You just plug them straight in and you're good to go. Then this is a bracket that was already supplied to us. We just had to wire it for the actual winch isolator. So it just goes there and then we just tacked on an extra bracket there just for the actual catch can as well. So this Boss aluminium bracket was already there and we just chucked one on top and then we could just mount up the actual catch can there as well. So it looks pretty sleek, keeps it out the way as well. So that turned out pretty nice. And then we've got the GME XRS UHF, so we've just got the antenna just on the mount just here instead of on the bull bar. You didn't want it on the bull bar, so that's why it's just mounted up in here, and then the unit's just tucked in underneath the dash. Then we've got the MSA Tommy mirrors. So I think, yeah, they're the nicest mirrors you can get for Tommy. I think they're nicer than the clear views personally. I think the clear views are pretty ugly where the MSAs look nice. So we've just got them and they're just wired in the indicators just into the factory indicator circuit as well. So that way they've got all that as well. Up on the roof, we just got a light bar. So that's just a steady light bar. And then we've just got the Light Force Rock 20s just on each side, and they just all switch from the dash as well. So if you want to turn them on and off, you can do all that from the dash. And then just up on top of the roof rack, with just pre-wired power. It's 24 volt power for the Starlink. So that way when he wants to chuck the Starlink on in the future, that's all there ready to go. And there's also an extra Anderson plug. So if you ever want power for whatever reason, whether he wants to chuck another light up there, or it just needs power for some reason, there's another Anderson up there as well, so for extra power. So that's pretty much everything on the cab side of things. So we'll jump inside and check out what we've done there, and then we'll jump into Tommy Camper after that. Yeah, so just jumping inside, so we've just got the overhead roof console. That's from Department of Interior. And that's just a nice big roof console. So if you've got like a 79 series, these are definitely a great option to go. It gives you heaps of storage, and then you can also add some extra switches on the top there, which he's opted for. And then that way you've got some extra switches, especially in the fact that these new facelifts don't really have too many options when it comes to switches. So having this overhead roof console where you can have some extra ones, definitely handy. And then that extra storage is, yeah, just makes it so much better. So that's a nice addition. And then they've gone for the same thing on the actual center console as well, just Department Interior full length center console. And that just houses a couple 6 sockets. Then we've also got the scan gauge in there as well. So if you ever got any faults you want to just have a look at, you can get that all through there. And then you can get a lot more gauges through it as well. So especially if you've got a long range fuel tank like what this one does, the scan gauge is really handy to have because you can actually dial it in, where most of the time the dasher obviously won't show you the correct fuel usage anymore because obviously it doesn't know it's got extended fuel tanks. So if you got them, it's definitely worth getting into a scan gauge because then you can get the accurate information for you. Then just into the actual dash, we've got all our switches. So we've got the Starlink switch, got a couple cameras. So he's got multiple cameras on this thing. So just be able to turn them on and off via the actual head unit. So there's just switches in the dash there. And then we've got our light bar for the top. Then we've got our driving light one, and then you also got the water heater there plus the tow pro. So that's where all that stuff switched. And then we've got a few extras up on here. And then just the switches in the overhead console. So you just got your 2 work lights left and right for the overhead. You've got your battery link switch there as well. And then he's got more work lights for the rear. And then these 2 are just spares. So if he ever wants to add on future ones, he's just got a couple spares there you can use. And then the wiring's just tucked down the back there. So if you ever wanted to add on to the future, you've got a couple spare switches. Then the actual head unit itself is just the Alpine head unit. These are pretty nice head units. I think they're the nicest ones you can get. Usually that's the ones we kind of opt for, especially in the 70 series. There's not too many that do a nice like plug and play full surround unit like Alpine do, and that's why we always opt for the Alpine ones. That's where your little handheld is there for the XRS. Nice and accessible, and it's got a little pass-through down in there. And then just below that is just a voltmeter, and that's for the one in the actual Tommy Camper. So if you ever wanted to see what the voltage is and you want to bring up the app, we've got a little dash there, and it's just switch via ignition. So we just put a little relay in, so it's connected to the lithium battery via the plug on the back. We've got a big 23-pin plug for all that. And then we just run it through an actual ignition triggered relay. So that way it's only ever going to come on when the key's on. And that way when the key's off, so you're not going to be constantly draining power from that Tommy Camper just for a voltmeter there. And then jumping up here, so we just got the rear view mirror camera. So that's the Car Vision one. We like to opt for those just because they've got the most amount of cameras you can put into them. And then a lot of them, they've got 1 or 2, where this one can have up to 3, which is really handy, especially if you're towing like a caravan and that. You can get the camera in the back. You can also have a rear view one, and if you want a front facing one, you can do that. So that's why we always opt for them, and they're more of a factory finish. So they look pretty factory, especially if you're in a vehicle that already comes with one that looks pretty similar to that, like my vehicle, for example. As soon as you replace it, you wouldn't even be able to tell. Like when it's off, you can't tell that it's an actual aftermarket one. So that's why we really like them, and that's why we've opted for that. Then just below that, it's just a black view dash cam. So it's just got a front and rear camera on it. So there's one on the back, and then that one's obviously got the camera inbuilt into it. And then over on the driver's side, we've got the quad lock charger there. So they're a really handy charger to have, especially if you've got the quad lock case, and then it keeps it nice and secure when you're off-roading. You don't have to worry about it vibrating loose. That's why it's a little bit nicer than just the standard magnetic ones. So that's pretty much everything at the front here. So we'll jump into the back and check out the behind the seat kit. Let's jump into the back. So we got our behind the seat kit. So this is the one that we make for the 79 series. Fits the single cabs and the dual cabs. So yeah, it's just a nice little kit. So it starts with a 100 amp hour battery. We can go for a 200. This one we couldn't because we do have the child restraint, so it all spaced out a little bit. So we couldn't fit the second battery in there. But typically if you don't have the child restraint, we can fit 2 100 slim lines there or 200 slim. And then that way you can have 200 amp hours if you wanted to. But we've just got the 100 there. Then we've got the DC hub, where everything is just nice and easily accessible there. You just pop that cover off and get to all your fuses. Makes it super simple. And then everything's just labeled there. So if you ever need to know what your fuses actually are, they're all just labeled there, so you know straight away what the problem is. Then they've just opted for a Victron system. So typically this would come with like a red arc system, but because we're going for a full Victron system in the back, just wanted to keep it all the same. So we're just going for the 130 MPPT and then the Orion 50 DC-DC charger. And that's just ignition triggered because we do have 3 DC-DCs on it. We just ignition triggered them all, and then that way as soon as that ignition's on, it's able to pull power. Otherwise, if you don't do that, it ends up dropping the voltage too much, and then all of a sudden it won't charge. So anytime you've got multiple chargers, whether that's one for a caravan, one in your car, you always need to have it. And then most cars these days you need to ignition trigger anyway because of the smart alternator. Toyota, you still get away with it, but for this one we decided to ignition trigger because of that. Just over here is just your solar input, so if you ever wanted to charge, you just plug straight into here, and then you can charge via solar blanket right there. And then we've got a Victron shunt just down there, so that's a 500 amp hour shunt, and then just underneath the actual battery is all our relays. So we've just got our relays there for all the extra accessories like that relay for the voltmeter in the dash, and a few ones for those switches overhead console as well. Then just over on each side, it's got a couple socket outlets. So then that way, if you want to charge anything in the rear seats, you've got a couple of outlets either side. Makes it super handy if you ever need to plug anything in, charge it. And then underneath the actual seat, we've just gone for the focal amp there, just because we've got some upgraded speakers in each door card. So that's just a nice place to be able to put it. It's a bit hard to be able to get them under either the driver's seat because it is uneven, the actual ground. So this is a nice place to put it. Because we had the sound deadening, we did have to cut the sound deadening out underneath, otherwise we couldn't close the actual seats. But as soon as you cut that cutout out of the max noise liner, it easily fits. So that's a good place to put it. And then yeah, it's got the sound deadening throughout the whole vehicle. That's the door cards, the whole floor, the back wall. It's just got the 2-stage. So it's got the normal stick-on sound deadener. It's got the mass noise liner on top of that. So yeah, it works really well. I've noticed that in my car, that yeah, it makes a huge difference. It is a bit of work to put it in, but if you fully strip the whole car, it's not too bad of a job, but it's just a little bit time consuming. But it makes definitely a huge difference, especially when you close the doors. That's when you really notice the difference between one that's got it and one that doesn't. So yeah, if you're interested in doing it, it's definitely worthwhile. And in each of the door cards, we've got the upgraded speakers and the actual door card housing. These are the Alpine ones. I think they're probably one of the nicest ones you can get. And then there's got the upgraded speakers that are all wired to the amplifier there and then to the Alpine head unit. So that's definitely a good mixture. We find that's probably one of the better ones to go for is the Alpine focal combination. If you go for the focal like amplifier and speakers paired with an Alpine head unit, it's probably one of the better sound systems you can go for. So they're definitely a great option. They are more on the premium side, but yeah, they're definitely worth it in our personal opinion. That's pretty much everything in the back here. So we'll jump into the Tommy camper and check out what we've done there. So on the passenger side, so just in the toolbox underneath, this is where we've got all our air system. So we've just got a twin ARB compressor in there, also a 4-litre air tank, and then also a retractable hose. That's just a compact hose. It's pretty nice. We're able to get it pretty tucked up into that side so we can still utilize most of the actual toolbox. So it came out pretty nicely. And then we've got our little gauge in there for our airbags. So we did have airbags fitted, and then there was just the manual points on the back. And then he had just decided that after doing a bit of research, he wanted to go to the electronic adjustment. It makes it a lot easier, especially when you're going to be living out of this thing. Being able to pull up a camp and then just be able to adjust it electronically, I think makes a huge difference. I've been stuffing around when it comes to like rocks. I mean, most people do, and max tracks, and it just takes forever to set up camp. If you can just adjust it electronically through your airbags, it makes a huge difference. So that's just got your 2 switches there to be able to turn them on and off. And then you just got your gauge there, plus just your actual air compressor switch there as well, along with your hose reel. And then yeah, that's everything in that toolbox. Jumping into here, this is like the kitchen side. So it's got the Bushman fridge. That's just a 65 litre, just a little small one there. And then we've got our full power system. So this was already supplied the actual components to make this up, and then we're going to put a full Victron system into it. So just Tommy Cam supplied the actual face here with a lot of these cutouts, and then we've gone ahead and just actually wired it and then put it to the actual Victron system. So it's got a couple isolators up there. One is for the actual unit, and then one's for solar. And then we've just got a couple like voltmeter there, a couple outlets, another solar Anderson input, and then just an outlet there. And we've got our water outlet for drinking water, just with a switch there as well. And then just the little outlet on the hose. So if you ever want some drinking water, you just get access to it straight there. Then overhead, they've got the inbuilt lights. That's all wired again to the lithium system. Just makes it super simple to be able to just turn them on and off. Makes it nice. And then just under here, we've got a 240 volt outlet, so that's just wired to the 3 kVA Victron Multi Plus. So that's just an outlet there if you want to do induction cooking, air fryer, whatever. You just easily plug that into there as well. And then underneath, behind this table here, we've got a 24 volt travel buddy. So we just opted for the 24 volt version. So we just put a little converter in just to take the voltage from 12 to 24, just to make it a little bit more powerful. So if you want to heat up quicker, 24 volts able to do that. So that's why that's 24 volt one. And then this located up here is just a few extra lights. So that's just switches for the lights. So that's just the rear light. Got a 240 if you ever want to turn it on and off here. Water pump, and then just a water heater. So instead of having to go around to one side and be able to switch everything on and off, it's all just dual switched. So then you can turn it on and off from either this side or the other side. Just makes it a lot easier than having to run around the car all the time to turn everything on and off. And then here's just the water outlet that was already fitted from Tommy Campers. So then we'll just wire it into the actual Toyota and the whole hot water system. Then around on the back, we've got a little light there. That was already the same thing, fitted already. We just wired it up to the lithium system via the switches there. And then underneath on the tow bar, we've got a charge harness. Then we've also got a couple of the cameras. So one of them is for the dash camera, and the other one's actually a reverse camera. And then the top there is the rear view mirror camera. So yeah, there's 3 cameras on the back. It obviously is pretty big, this thing, so yeah, you can't have too many cameras in my personal opinion, especially when you're trying to back it up. Last thing you want to do is invest quite a lot of money into one of these and then you back into something and then damage it. So having too many cameras, I don't think it's a bad thing personally. And then we just fitted the trailer plug. So that one was a little bit more work than normal. Usually it's a full plug and play kit, but the actual unit was underneath the extended fuel tank. So it was a bit of a nightmare to get to. So we just run power all the way to the front there. But usually that's a pretty straightforward plug and play kit from Toyota. This one was just a little bit more work because the cabling was all inaccessible. But jumping around to the driver's side, this is pretty much where all the electrical and the water system is. So we'll start at the top. It's quite a lot in here. So it's got the Lynx distributor. That's just for your main power. So we've got the inverter, 2 fuses for the inverter. You've got your 2 DC-DCs there, and you've also got your MPPT. And then we've also got our fuse box over on the other side. So that's a big 12-way fuse box that came from Tommy Campers. So that's what that one is. That fuse box of 50 amps. And then we've just got our relay hub here down here as well. So that was already laid out, and then we just came in and wired it up. And then we've got our 2 DC-DCs down the back there. And then we've also got an isolator, so if you ever wanted to isolate the full power, you've got one on the positive, and we've also got another one here on the negative. He's also 3D printed some mounts for it, and just put some fans on it just to cool them down. So we just wired them in just a straight power, and it's got a little sensor on the back. So if they start getting too hot, those sensors will then pick that up, and then those fans will turn on automatically. So that's on the back of the 2 DC-DCs and the 2 MPPTs that are in this system. So that's a pretty nice feature that he's added on. Located just next to that is just your 2 RCDs. So you obviously got the multi-plus installed, so that's the 2 16 amp breakers we got. So one for your incoming power and then one for your outgoing power. And then down further, there's just another breaker, and that's for your fixed solar. So there's about 600 watts of solar on the roof, and that just goes to a DC breaker, and then it goes into the MPPT. So then that way, if you're ever working on it, you can just isolate your solar straight away, because you can obviously isolate all your battery system, but if you don't isolate the solar, you're still going to have power coming in. Everything's still going to be powered up. So it's always a good idea to put some DC breakers in, and then that way you can fully isolate your solar system. Located just underneath that is your big MPPT. So that's your MPPT for all your fixed solar. So it is, I think, about running 100, 110 volts, the solar system. So that's why it's such a big MPPT, just to handle that voltage. And then the other one located further back is just your blanket solar. So if you ever want to plug in, get some extra solar charge, that's what that other MPPT is for. And then located down underneath that is just the water tank. So that was pre-fitted by Tommy Campers. We just chucked the actual water sender in. I think that one was about a 300 or 350 mil water sender, and that's just 0 to 190 ohms wired into the actual servo. So then that way we can monitor the level of the water every time, and it just makes it a lot easier than trying to guess how much water you've actually got in your system. Then located next to that, which I already spoke about, is the multi-plus. That's the 12 volt 3 kVA. And then there's just a few outlets. So there's one over on the cooking side, there's one on the inside, and then there's just one down here for the Duetto system. And then yeah, it's all powered just directly from the actual Amtron batteries in here. So they're a good unit. We just find that really bang for buck, they're probably the best ones you can get, and they give you the greatest AC charging. And then yeah, we don't really have too many issues with them. That's why we always opt for the multi-pluses ourselves, because we just find it is just the best when it comes to trying to go off grid. Then located next to that, so we just got the servo. That's what everything speaks to. So he does have a touch 50 just in the back, which we can show you shortly, and everything's just wired into that. And one thing we've done on this one, which I haven't done before, we just wired in the actual shunt that's on the Victron system in the back of the car, and we just wire that through to the servo here. So when you do touch that touch screen, you can monitor both systems. So that's a pretty nice extra feature. I think that's the real benefit to Victron. Instead of having multiple different shunts you got to pick up off and then try to see what your system's at, we can just have it all wired into the servo, bring it up, and if you've got multiple different batteries, like I do on my car, it just makes it a lot easier. Instead of having to bring up a red arc one here and then a red arc one there, or a Victron one, Victron here, be able to just bring up one app and see everything, and then just see it all on your touch screen. Just makes it super simple. So really all we did was just got the VE cable from the actual servo there, and we just wired it into the servo here, and then you just click on the touch screen and see both of them. And then up above that is just the LTE system, so if you ever want to remote in and see what's going on with it, you can just see all that via that LTE module. And then just moving over to the right, so this is a Toyota. It's a 10 litre. Fit them on pretty much most of our systems, because they're just probably the best when it comes to the fact that you can get 12 and 240 in the one. Most of them, they're either 240 or they're 12 volt or they're gas, where this one having the option whether you want to have it off 12 volt or 240 just gives you a lot more flexibility, that if you're driving down the road and you want to turn it on, you can just turn it on and it can just run off the 12 volt. But then if you ever want to get some quicker hot water, you can just power it off for 240. It's obviously going to consume a lot more power, but it allows you to get that hot water a lot faster. So just having that flexibility is really handy. Then just underneath that is the battery. So we've got two 200 amp hour Victron batteries, and we don't have a shunt in this one because these ones have the direct communication to the servo. So anytime we're fitting a servo, and we always try to go for the no shunt and just talk directly to the actual batteries themselves. Really the main benefit is just gives you a lot more information, a lot more accurate information as well. So how the system normally would work if you had a shunt is really the shunt, you program that, and then the shunt just goes off calculations to determine how much battery power you've actually got. So at the end of the day, if someone programmed it incorrectly, or for whatever reason someone wired something incorrectly and then they bypassed the shunt, or for whatever reason if the shunt itself just came out of whack, then your whole system's going to be out and you're not going to actually notice. Where if you wire directly to the batteries, you're relying on the batteries telling you how much is in it. And of course the batteries are going to know exactly where they're at. They are themselves, they know themselves better than anyone else. So obviously wiring them into the batteries just makes it a lot more accurate. And then the one thing you notice, especially when you're programming them, is a lot of time when you do a shunt, it'll just come up straight away when you program it, it's 100%, or the batteries aren't 100%, but it doesn't know, so that's why I just opt for that automatically. Where these ones, whenever you power them straight up and talk to them, it'll tell you exactly where they're at. So it'll be like 40%, 20%, 10%. It's so much more accurate. And then it gives you a little bit more information, like what the cells are doing, what the temperature of the batteries are. So if you are going for a servo, I would definitely recommend getting batteries like the Victron ones that will talk directly to it, and that way you can bypass the shunt. That's one less component you need, one less thing that can fail, and you get far more accurate information. So it's definitely something you want to look into. And then it's located on top of it, the isolator we already spoke about for the negative side. Then we've got the fuse in there straight off the battery, and there's just in the actual gas tight battery box. So it obviously isn't habitable space, being that you sleep in there, so that's why it's in the box there. Then our water system over here, so it's just a temporary thing that he just wants to try out to make sure he's happy with it. And that's why it's not the nicest finish. But we've just got our external pickup and our tank pickup there. Then we've got our mixer here, and then we've got a few of our outlets located just here. Once again with the switches that are just dual switched. So that way you haven't got to turn it off from here or there. So it just makes it super easy for you. And there's a couple of outlets there as well. It's just so if you want to charge anything, you haven't got to worry about going to one of the other charge points. You just pick up power straight there. And then it's got the relay hub just above that just powers it all. And that's pretty much everything on the inside. And then just on the outside here, we just got the actual 240 inlet there. So that's just your charger. So it's a 120 amp AC charger with that 3 kVA multi-plus. So you can plug in and get, pretty quick, fast charge. It's a nice, handy feature to have. But then if you ever want to dial it down because you're not on a 15 amp circuit, maybe on a 10 or maybe on a generator, You can bring it down from to say 3 amps AC instead of being 16 amps. Super flexible with the Multi-Plus. And that's what we really like it. And then just above that is just the penetration we made just for the GPS. So we just got a GPS antenna that's plugged into that LTE network. So then that way, if it wants to monitor like where it actually is, wants to set up a geofence to get notifications, you can do all that via the Victron system. Then same again on the door, another light, exact same as the other side. That's pretty much everything around the driver's side here. So we'll jump into the back and check out that. Let's jump into the back here. So we've got a couple, we've got an outlet over here, so if you want to charge anything, you can there via 12 volt. Then we've got another GPO there, it's a twin 10 amp GPO. And then we've got some overhead fans, just the Scirocco fan, so if you ever want to turn that on at night, you can do that. Same thing with a national lunar light, so if you ever need some extra light, you can just turn that on there. Located at the back here is just all our switches, just be able to turn everything on and off. And then it just makes it super accessible. Being right inside the door there just makes it a lot easier instead of you walk out the back and they go, oh, I've got to turn everything off. You just reach around and you turn stuff on and off there. Got the diesel heater controls there as well. And then here is our actual touchscreen. So everything's just controlled through there. Makes it easy to be able to see exactly what's going on with your system. That's why I personally really like the Victron system. Everything's separated, so you know straight away what the problem is. So you can see straight away, oh, how much solar is coming in. I'm not getting much solar, that might be an issue. Or you can see how much DC-DC is coming in. Makes it a bit easier than the Red Arc system. Red Arc system just brings it all together. So if you've got solar coming in and DC-DC coming in, but you're not too happy with how much is coming in, it makes it a little bit more difficult to work out what the actual problem is. But when you go for Victron, you can see straight away, oh, I'm getting so much from DC-DC, I'm getting so much from solar. And you can also go back as well and check out like the last 30 days. So if you ever do think there is a problem, you can go back and see, oh, is my solar an issue? Or has it always been like this and I just never noticed? So it just makes it a lot easier to be able to determine where the power is coming from and also where the power is going to. Because over on the right hand side, you can see all your outputs. So you can see how much power is going to AC, how much goes to DC. So if you ever feel that you're using too much power, you can see straight away, am I using too much AC power or am I using too much DC power? And then you can start switching things off accordingly. And then, yeah, I'll just quickly show you how we normally do it. So normally when you hit the actual battery, you only see one there, but because we have wired that other one in, and then that's where you can see the two different batteries there. So that is a pretty nice feature. I personally think if you're going to have a couple systems, like you're going to have a canopy system and one in the back of your car, definitely this is something to opt for. I've currently got a Red Arc system in mind, but I might switch it to Victron now that we've started doing this, because I think it's just a nice little feature to have. And then that way I've got to always bring up a different app to see what's going on. You can see straight away, just on the one touch screen, just makes it super simple. And then the rest of the Touch 50 is pretty much the same as always. Yeah, you've got all your power coming in on the left-hand side, power going out on the right-hand side, and then you can control the inverter and your amps just from the actual touch screen there as well. Pretty much everything on this. Yeah, it was a pretty good build. Obviously, pretty decent build on the actual car itself, and then another big build on the actual canopy and the Tommy Cam to fit out. But yeah, this one's come out pretty nice. Yeah, it should be pretty good for him to go away now. Spend extended periods off grid, especially having that battery system in the back that you can run certain things off, doesn't have to run everything off the actual Tommy camper. So if you're interested in anything similar, or you'd like some more information, get in contact with us and we'll catch you on the next one.